Incoming message.
It was the dawn of the third age of mankind. Groovy.
Hi-ho. This is me, Kermit the Frog.
Hello there.
Moopsy.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Oh, for crying out loud.
Not a great plan.
Program complete. Enter when ready.
Let's see what's out there. Engage.
Different roads, same old spark. Talking Trek till the streetlights spark. We're either sci-fi guys riding warp speed waves, Mac and DT cannon lighting up the airwaves. Blasters of books, we geek to the core, laughing through the lore on those sci-fi guys.
Hey there, we are those Sci-Fi Guys, and this is that Those Sci-Fi Guys show. Just two working dudes, different lives and jobs, with a whole lot of love for science fiction and the fun that comes with it. We are your hosts. I am P.S. McKay, and I am more roasted than the latest Odyssey trailer online.
And I'm DT Cavman, and I haven't bothered to watch it.
No,
although I
no
did
one
just
has.
watch the first teaser trailer for Baywatch.
Well, you're to be expected to see that. Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll talk about it in another pod, but this Nolan trailer, this Nolan movie with the Odyssey is it's taking a turn, everybody, and I really don't know which direction or how much further that turn is. Like my son, who's just beginning to learn how to drive, tries to make the vehicle turn, but doesn't quite turn it enough and is about to hit that curb right in front of us. So
I'm about 6 months away
that's a
from
normal
that.
thing. Yeah, it's a little harrowing. I'm going to try to take him out tomorrow evening to an empty parking lot. He had his first real driver's test on July 4th. Not test, but I mean his a lesson with a professional who had their own access to the brakes. And we don't have that with our car, so I can't even pull the emergency brake. I don't know. These stupid new car manufacturers, they put the parking brake on the door side of the driver instead of in the middle in case that driver is incapacitated. That's such a stupid design flaw. Yeah. Anyway, he did well on his first driving lesson, though. I'll say that. And we are back from our, 4th of July spectacular. How'd you do, DT? Boom. Oh, boom. Oh, boom. There we go. Third time's the charm.
Third time's the charm. So the Cavman household hosted about 15 people, including special guests, Broham Gaming and his family.
Yeah.
It was very nice. That was warm. It was in the, mid to low 90s. But my backyard in the afternoon, when we kind of started, the sun moves over the house and to the front. So the backyard starts to cool off. And it was very nice. We had a mixture of family and friends. You know, there was a handful of kids running around, throwing cornhole and tossing balls around, and one very demanding 4-year-old trying to run the show with a couple of teenage girls and a tween boy, all of whom handled that very well. I think I may have accidentally gave my nephew a power trip because he's recently been learning that his uncle was in the Army as a soldier, and has been drew me a picture on Father's Day of me wearing green because it's a soldier suit. So I dug through some foot lockers and I dusted off an old Army hat that had our shared last name on the back of it. And he apparently has been wearing it pretty much ever since. And then he started.
Oh God, you created a monster. You
I
created a little
guess
you.
I was just trying to, share something with him.
That's how it starts, DT.
My sister did say that he wore it like all night the next day, like took it to school. Like, his very own army hat, and he's very happy. He wants his uncle to buy him a soldier suit and then introduce him to other soldiers. So I might do that at some point. I'm not trying to spin my sister up. But she knew what it meant for me to give it to him. Okay. It was an important thing for him, and it was, but that was the fun of it. The 4th of July, everybody was festive. Everybody had a wonderful time. We grilled, we shared stories. I was actually able to share something with your brother, which he seemed to take to heart. By the way, if you ever want to read it, I can send it to you as well.
Okay. Yeah, probably just send it to me. Not right now, but yeah, just send it to me. That'll be fine. I could always use something like that.
It was a nice time. And
good.
I know you do it up pretty big too.
Oh boy, yeah. We usually buy an obscene amount of fireworks every year. The safe and sane kind. So like they like explode, but they're on the ground. They don't shoot up into the air. But they can be loud. They can be there. It's a big light show and everything. It's fine. And for the 250th, we're like, we have to do like at least 40% more fireworks, right? And I'm like,
sure.
Yes, we do. So, so, we host, I cooked the hot dogs. The thing is, when you're hosting this and then you have to prep for this fireworks show, which I have 2 ladders set up. I put my big sound system out on the lawn, and I have music coordinated with the fireworks. I don't get to actually sit around and talk to anyone. Like,
the only time you get is when the dudes crowd around the grill and you're grilling and people are talking to you, that's.
Yeah. I had maybe a good 45 minutes at the beginning of the party with everyone. And then that was it. I was too busy, but it was fun. Like the neighbors know what we do. So they had invited other people of their friends and family to their homes on the street to watch, and had 50 minutes of music playing, including the Stars and Stripes Forever, Dreams by Van Halen, Katy Perry's Fireworks, this old Ragged Flag with Johnny Cash. That actually starts
Ragged Old Flag?
Yeah,
I walked through a county courthouse square.
Yeah.
On a park bench, an old man was sitting there. I love that.
It's a good one. Ending with William Tell's
the 1812 Overture or the William Tell Overture?
Yeah, the William Tell Overture. The Lone Ranger, the one that they used in the Lone Ranger.
Yep.
That's my father-in-law's requirement every year. So
nothing says America, but it was something written about a European by a European.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it was a astounding success. But afterwards I'm wiped. Like I'm shot. It's like an hour of me going back and forth, picking things up, knocking things down, making sure I'm not being set on fire by something. So, everyone else is on ready when the show's done, and we're like hosing everything down. We're shoveling everything into the extra garbage can that I have. And then after that, I just go straight to the shower. And by the time my shower's done, everyone's gone home. So
yeah.
That's just how it's been. I mean, the amount of gunpowder that falls on me during these shows is extraordinary. But
so you don't go out for a smoke after that?
oh my God, that would be really stupid. It's bad enough. It's bad enough that I had requested for another beverage in the middle of the show, uh, with the amount of fireworks. Oh, the other thing was the fire inspector for our area. One of the fire inspectors, their children were at our party, and then they showed up to watch the show. So I have my safety goggles. I was always going to wear those. I had my gloves on, and I practiced it, as safe as could be. And then at the end, I turned to the fire inspector, or children's friend's parent, and I go, "So how many violations did you note?" And she was good. She goes, "Actually, you didn't violate a damn thing." I'm like, "All right, well, here we go."
America.
Yeah, I push the boundaries, and I still stay within the margin. I can't break the law, people. I just can't. So, but it was good. Had a good time. And then Sunday, I don't know what happened. I just couldn't move. Only today is the first day where I could actually feel like I can walk again normally and things like that. I mean, I was just coming off of a trip to DC where we walked like 8-10 miles a day. In 85 degrees, and I was sick as a dog for half of that. And then
I was sick all last week in a 90-degree heat.
Yeah.
Almost
it's
100-degree
rough, dude.
heat, really. So yeah.
I am not a fan of these respiratory illnesses.
Oh,
in the summer.
I think it's worse.
It is worse. I don't know. It's just because it's the envelope of the it's the suffocation of humidity plus the suffocation of you being able to intake anything already. And heat like expands the air, so it's less dense. So you're getting less oxygen per inch anyway, or per cubic inch anyway. So
well, needless to say, we both had good 4th of Julys. Happy
we did. We survived.
250th America. It was a
happy
250th time.
Yes, it was. It was a wonderful time. And today, I'm gonna have to stop.
Well, today we're doing
sharing.
something a little bit. We're doing a little bit different, as we're kind of talking a little bit about Mac's trip to the East Coast. A big part of that was the fact that he and his family made a trip to the battlefield at Gettysburg, which is a pilgrimage that Americans should take at some point. It's one.
I completely agree.
That I have gone to several times. Some on my own as a civilian, and some actually on military duty, it was always amazing. And for the 230th anniversary of the battle, Turner Broadcasting produced the movie Gettysburg, a 4-hour behemoth masterpiece that is the movie version of the 130th. Sorry, anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg.
Like something's not sitting right for some reason. Sorry, right. I'm sorry. I
130th.
Interrupt you.
And it was the movie is actually an adaptation of the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel "The Killer Angels" by Michael Shara, who died not too long before the movie was made. And the movie is dedicated to him. It is a fantastic movie. Is it a perfect movie? No, but it's a fantastic movie. We'll get into that a little bit, but it encapsulates kind of what the impact of this battle was, and it's very tight to the book. Very fascinating cast and some great behind-the-scenes movie making that I will let you all in on. But Mac went and took his family to the battlefield. So I would love to hear some of your impressions of the battlefield, as well as some impressions of the movie. We all know how I feel.
So, let's see. Here we go. I just realized, of course, last second that there's something that I needed to. I knew what I needed to do here to really get this going. So I really didn't have much knowledge of the battle, other than it was the turning point of the war, and it was absolutely devastating to the Confederacy. Just absolutely devastating. But I didn't know like how it was structured over the 3 days and whatnot, and it was interesting to say the least. Like when they bring you in, you go to the headquarters and they have you watch a movie, and they basically show you how the battle played out
at the visitor center.
At the visitor center, yeah. They prep you for all of this. They show you how the battle played out over the 4 days. It was 3 days of battle, prep on June 30th when everyone was arriving. And then just the devastation on July 4th with the rain and everything. But they showed you, here, let me share this one just to give you an idea. They show you like where the Union Army was situated here, Little Round Top, which plays big in the movie here. And then the
Cemetery Ridge in the middle.
Cemetery Ridge right over here. Yep. And the last charge on the last day. And so it was, you're like, okay, so I get the basics of it and everything. And then we had chartered a tour bus or whatever. It was a small thing, but then they brought us to all the different places like on the map. And if I could tell you, I would. I mean, we definitely went to Little Round Top. We went to Devil's Den down here. We went over here on Lee's side of everything. We're on the tree line here, which is interesting because apparently the landscape really is unchanged. The trees are where they're supposed to be, where they were back then. Mostly the fences are where they all were. And a large part of that is due to the federal government maintaining it that way.
There was also a big conservation move. The town of Gettysburg had actually crept onto a good chunk of the northern part of the battlefield. Until about the 90s, when they actually started reclaiming a lot of parts of the battlefield. Now, the battle actually took place, particularly on the first day, in Gettysburg town proper. So there was some, that's why you see, ironically enough, I don't know why they went with the Union as red and the Confederacy as blue. Normally it's the other way around, especially since the Union wore blue. But you see
I had to do a double take on this to make sure I remembered it right.
Right. Because normally on American military maps, U.S. forces are blue. We're called blue force. Enemy is in red. So clearly this guy must have been pro-Confederate who made this map. Anyway, you see, and this is the disposition of the battle, as you can see at the very top, just over the little icon for the Gettysburg town, is July 3rd. This is what it looks like on July 3rd. On July 1st, when the battle began, as the Union pulled out from west of town, through the town to the heights south of town, there was fighting in the street. There was, soldiers, wounded soldiers taking shelter in houses and buildings in town. And there's to do a comprehensive history of the actual Battle of Gettysburg would be a series that I could do.
Oh, well, yeah.
But let me give us the clear background of what's going on. The American Civil War went from 1861 to 1865. At this point, this is 1863, July of 1863. In the Eastern Theater, meaning Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Robert E. Lee's Confederate Army has basically beaten every Union army and Union general sent against him on numerous occasions over the previous 2 years.
Remind me, because I want to bring something up about Lee as characterized in the movie that I feel is contradictory to what history is showing us up to this point. So which I think you know, but
twice Lee had made attempts to move north to not only take the fighting out of Virginia, because obviously Virginia secedes, Maryland stays in the Union, mostly because of occupation by federal forces, and to protect Washington. So that's the main focus, right? The Confederates also set up their capital to be 100 miles from DC as kind of a fuck you, okay? It was done intentionally.
By their standards, they're like, well, we're Virginians. Why do we have to change? You're the ones who suck.
Well, yeah. But needless to say, the Union Army has gone through the Union Army in this area, this theater, has gone through multiple commanders, generally have lost most of the major engagements. There's been a couple of draws, like the Battle of Antietam the previous year, when Lee made his first attempt to invade the North to take pressure off the Virginia, particularly the areas where the farmers were trying to grow crops, maybe feed a little bit off of, Maryland, Pennsylvania, whatnot, and also put pressure on Washington. Hope, maybe put enough pressure for Lincoln to go to the negotiating table. In the previous 6 months, the Union Army was embarrassed at the Battle of Fredericksburg in December of 1862, and again in May of 1863 at the Battle of Chancellorsville, both in Virginia, both with the Union Army of the Potomac, greatly outnumbered the Confederate forces and were outmaneuvered, and poor leadership led to embarrassing defeats by a numerically inferior force. At that time, the Confederate leadership was much more experienced, because a good chunk of the American officer corps resigned from, it was very heavy Southern officers, this martial tradition in the U.S. Army. And so many of them resigned and joined the Confederacy, that in the Union kind of filled it by, giving political appointees commands, that it became one of the reasons why leadership, particularly in the Virginia theater, was an issue. So they basically have been on their heels, despite having more men, more equipment, more ammunition, you name it, shorter lines of supply, everything. The technology was everything, for the most part, favored the Union armies, except military strategy and experience, at least in the Eastern Theater. Out in the West, in Tennessee, in Maryland, in Missouri and Kentucky and whatnot, the Union Army was faring better. At the same time as the Battle of Gettysburg is the the Siege of Vicksburg under Ulysses Grant, which we'll talk about at the end a little bit, why this is considered like the turning point in the war. Needless to say, at this point, Lee's like, all right, I've kicked this guy's ass all over the place. If I win a battle in the North, in a northern state, and I can threaten Washington, I think the war's over. The Union will give up. They'll give us our freedom. We'll have a negotiated peace. So that was it. And they invade through Maryland and into Pennsylvania to threaten the capital of Pennsylvania, Harrisburg, some of the other major cities along, in that area, and then threaten Washington. The Union has to turn around. They changed out yet another commander and marched north looking for the Confederates. That is the stage of where the war is. Okay. Just as a kind of a 3-minute rundown on kind of the face of the war. Now I'm going to go ahead and tangent real quick. Folks, we know this isn't sci-fi. Okay. There's not even a real way I can loop this into what we would normally discuss as those sci-fi guys. I'm not going to lie to you here. So if you're going to zone out because it's not sci-fi, do apologize. We are going to do a movie review. So for those of you who like that, stick around. Okay. What I will tell you is, due to the fact that the proximity, now the Battle of Gettysburg was fought from the 1st to the 3rd of July in 1863. So the fact that it's timely, the fact that it was historically significant, as we are going through a historically significant anniversary, the 250th of the United States, and the fact that my partner had a chance to go and visit this most hallowed of ground. So I will go ahead and we'll veer into the movie if you'd like, and we can talk a little bit about the things that the movie shows us, and we can talk a bit about the history piece and our impressions of the movie and of the battlefield itself, if you're good with that.
Yeah. So I will say I'm glad I went to the battlefield before I saw this movie. A lot of times it's very hard to have a historical epic like Gettysburg really make sense, spatially and whatnot.
Sure.
You just have to accept what the immediate thing is happening on the screen, right? Basically it starts out with, we're not going to do a real thing. Martin Sheen plays General Lee. Here, share this instead. Jeff, is it Jeff? Not Jeff Bridges. What's his name?
That is Tom Berenger.
Yeah, no, I'm talking.
You're talking
about,
Jeff Daniels.
Jeff Daniels, yeah, plays Colonel
Joshua Chamberlain.
I don't have the list. Chamberlain. Colonel Chamberlain for the 20th of Maine. And if I describe that wrong, please correct me.
The 20th Maine Infantry, or most commonly known as the 20th Maine.
The 20th Maine. So I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised to hear we're going to be seeing the 20th Maine in this, because they mentioned the 20th Maine marching about 23 miles during the first day of battle. And then they just went right on into the second day of battle, keeping Little Round Top, which was incredible.
So let's just set the stage historically, my friend. This is July heat in Pennsylvania, southern Pennsylvania.
Oh, believe me, I was reminded of that.
It is
watching this.
And at that time, it was also upwards of 90-something degrees. Okay. These are not a modern mechanized military. 80% of your forces are infantry. Okay. Usually 70 to 80%. So dudes marching, some of the Confederates out of shoes, which is one of the reasons why the battle started in Gettysburg, because the rebels, who were not nearly as industrial and had supply shortages, partially also due to an ever increasing blockade of southern ports by the U.S. Navy. They had heard, they were foraging for not only food, information, but also looking for supplies. So including things like shoes and clothes and things that the army would need. So there's an old saying that the Battle of Gettysburg was a battle fought over shoes. And yes, there was rumor of a footwear warehouse in Gettysburg, and that was one of the reasons why the rebels had sent raiding parties into the surrounding areas looking for it. And they ran into Sam Elliott and the Union cavalry, who You know, cavalry is the reconnaissance forces of the time. Still is now. They were just mechanized. It's the DT, or the actual DT Cav Man hat, a hat that I
Yeah.
took with me on multiple overseas tours to combat zones. I didn't wear it outside the wire. It was for formal functions inside, but you get the great Sam Elliott, and you guys have all heard us talk about how much we love Sam Elliott. You know, from way back, even when we did our review of The Man Who Killed Hitler and Then the Bigfoot. And this was one of his great intense roles where he plays the criminally underrated Union General John Buford, who literally picked a lot of the ground that the Union ended up defending, and was able to hold ground against a vastly numerical superior force on the first day of battle, where he dismounted his 2,500 cavalrymen and held off 7,000 to 8,000 Confederate infantry long enough for Union infantry to show up. And so that's part of the first, hour or so of the movie. It's a lot of Sam Elliott and his Union cavalry, interspersed with Martin Sheen as Robert E. Lee and Tom Berringer as James Longstreet, the two senior Confederate generals. There's, Jeff Daniels on the right as Joshua Chamberlain. And mind you, this is right in that run where he was also going into
Dumb and Dumber.
Dumb and Dumber. Okay.
I
Talk
know.
about two diametrically opposed roles. Chamberlain, who was a college professor who gave up teaching college in Maine to go fight to preserve the Union and free the slaves, a man of a scholarly and religious background. He taught rhetoric and religion at Bowdoin College in Maine. Bowdoin College, yes. And actually became one of the more unlikely heroes of the Civil War for the Union. And then James Longstreet, who was a career Army officer who was from North Carolina and who rose through the ranks mostly by being a very hard-nosed, defensive-minded commander. Was very famous. He's actually very good friends with the future Union Army commander and future president, Ulysses S. Grant. They were longtime friends. And you see the friendship. One of the interesting things about both the book and the movie is how they highlight friendships with people who served on the other side, because this is a civil war, particularly particularly these people who were U.S. Army officers in what they call antebellum, the pre-war U.S. Army in the West and in California, was fighting in the Mexican War. And so many friendships, even all the way back to West Point, friendships grew between these people from Ohio and New York and Virginia and the Carolinas and whatnot, that are now tested when their states are now on opposite sides of this war. So that's that's a long running theory, or theme, not theory, through the whole story, which of course is actual throughout through the Civil War itself. But they highlight it quite a lot with several characters in this movie, which is, I think, where it gets some real good heart and humanity, because you realize that these people have different political views, but still view people on the other side as close as family.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely correct. I really liked that aspect of, I mean, it's very easy. And I know this came from the book. Was it Killer Angels?
The Killer Angels, which is a Pulitzer Prize winning novel, one of only two novels on the U.S. Army commanding generals recommended reading list. Okay. Most of them are biographies and historical treatises. This is a novel. Sure. It was so well received. It won the Pulitzer Prize. Michael Sharrow did a fantastic job with it. His son Jeff started writing companion novels, which became the books Gods and Generals and then The Last Full Measure, which bookend the war. Gods and Generals starts at the beginning of the war and goes all the way up just before Gettysburg, and then The Last Full Measure starts basically after Gettysburg and goes to the end of the war. But they're fantastic novels written in a very similar style. Jeff really kind of nailed his father's writing style, and I got to meet him actually at
Cool.
at an anniversary for the Battle of Antietam, which was September of 1862. I happened to be living in Maryland at the time, and a buddy flew down, and we went out to the 150th anniversary of the Battle of Antietam. And we watched the reenactments. I was wearing one of my Cav Stetsons, and we were wandering around, and there was a book signing, and bought a book. Met him, got his signature, told him I read his other books. I thought it was fantastic. And then I also got a chance to meet the guy who was reenacting as Jeb Stuart, the Confederate cavalry leader. At that time, he's not the guy who was acting in this movie, but it was still very cool because he's like, oh, that's a real Army Stetson, isn't it? Because he had read a lot of historical books. I'm like, yep. He's like, can I get a picture with you? I'm like, oh, yeah. We talked to him for like, it must have been like 20, 30 minutes. It was so cool because he wanted to talk to us. My buddy was an infantryman who had also actually done some reenacting during his time in the Rhode Island National Guard. And of course, I active duty Army. So we were, he wanted to pick our brains about modern war and, what we learned from the Civil War and stuff like that. It was fantastic. These big encampments and reenactments and anniversaries at Civil War battlefields, it's like Comic-Con for history nerds. It's amazing. I even cosplayed there.
Is the same kind of dedication too. Yeah, it's the same kind of dedication.
So here you have the Chamberlain brothers. This is Joshua, the colonel, the newly appointed commanding officer of the 20th Maine, a regiment that's only been in service for about a year, has not had too many engagements, but they started at 1,000 and they were already down to about 300 people due to desertion, casualties. And sickness killed a lot of people in the war, more than battlefield bullets and whatnot. And on his right is his brother, Tom Chamberlain. Now, actually, at the Battle of Gettysburg, there were 3 Chamberlain brothers. One of his other brothers was basically with like a religious organization that was kind of like one of those precursors to the Red Cross. Mm-hmm. It was called the Christian Commission. He was there trying to help set up places to put hospitals and stuff. So wasn't in the book, so they didn't put it in the movie.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, there's so much that has to go into this movie in and of itself anyway. I'm sure they had to knock a few things out of the book.
There's whole segments of the battle that you don't even see. I mean,
there's
and that's fine.
How do you detail a 3-day battle like that? Like, you
can't
in a book like that's that thick, right? Like,
well, yes, the book is, it's not a small book. It's a 300-page book. It's a good book though, man. And you can read along with a lot of the dialogue and the scenes in the movie. There's not a ton of difference because Ted Turner, the late Ted Turner, was not only a huge Civil War buff, he also helped foot the bill to get this. There was originally going to be like a 6-hour miniseries on TNT, and he's like, he saw like the first cut of the movie. He's like, I'm going to throw more money at this. We're putting it in the theater. I don't care if it's a 4-hour movie. And he didn't. And it was obviously reduced screenings. It was not a huge box office hit. It was fairly well received, but it really blew up huge on DVD, on video cassette and then DVD. It's like been a staple in a lot of history classrooms over the years. Some of the speeches that people give, the accuracy of the battle. Now, you want to hear
card speeches that I noticed, that's for sure.
Well, Chamberlain is, of course, a professor of rhetoric, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's a college professor, and so many of these leaders, they led by force of personality a lot. You have flamboyance, you have, untrained people rising through the ranks through charisma or political connections, and it's fascinating. Chamberlain was a college professor. Robert E. Lee was a career military officer, the son of a Revolutionary War general, and married to Martha Washington's granddaughter. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're looking at
By the way,
different.
Something I learned on my trip was Robert E. Lee's property was taken by the federal government and became Arlington National Cemetery. Everybody.
Correct. the most hallowed ground in the United States, many people would say, was once the home of Robert E. Lee and his family. And it was literally right across the river looking at D.C. now.
And he was married to George Washington's step-granddaughter.
Granddaughter. Yes.
Yeah. My God. Like, it's a very small world, Washington.
Well, he also idolized Washington, and his father was one of Washington's cavalry officers, the famed Light Horse Harry Lee. And then you have, and so there's so much history that runs through this. And yes, there was actually a British officer who was on camp, who was observing and reporting for the British government. This is Colonel Fremantle, who did not wear a red British dress uniform. They did put him in it for theatrical purposes, which is fine. I think it stands out a little.
It's fine. It's good for movie purposes. It's fine. Yeah.
Yep.
It tells the audience, okay, this is someone outside of everything.
Yep. He also, in some ways, there's two characters that really help explain the story, particularly on the southern side. Like, you get a little exposition with, and that's the character of Colonel Fremantle, who is a real person, was a real person.
Yep.
And then the character of Harrison the Scout, the spy, who was a real person as well, who was an actor. Who decided to use his skill. He's the big floppy hat.
I know. I'll recognize him when I see him. It's just I don't know where he is on these photos.
Scroll back.
If he's in here at all.
He is. You scrolled by him a couple of times. He's a major enough character. Actually, if you go down to the black and white, his is one of the. There you go, right there.
Him?
Right there, top right. Next one up.
There you go.
This is.
There you go.
I think his name was James Harrison.
But
he
if I can zoom in
was wandering around being, gathering intelligence for the Confederacy, for Lee's army, acting different characters, playing a dumb, he kind of downplays and plays like a poor down on his luck farmer looking for his wife who ran off with a soldier. And people are like telling him things as they're kind of looking down on him and figures he's, some poor dumb schmuck and they don't realize that he's just taken all the information. So, but you get some interesting information about this situation where, like, he reports to Longstreet, and then Longstreet goes to Lee and talks to them about where they think the Union Army is. And then, oh, by the way, the Union has since replaced their commander with a guy from Pennsylvania. And Lee's like, maybe he'll be slow, cautious because it's his home. Meanwhile, George Meade, by the way, I was stationed at Fort George Meade. George Meade was actually a pretty hard-nosed, tough guy who he had this kind of piercing look. Historically, the subordinate once called him a damned old goggle-eyed snapping turtle. some fascinating things on how they describe each other.
Yeah.
But George Meade did not delay. He kind of got the Army on the move, and the Army moved faster than the Confederates thought. And so when the infantry ran into John Buford and the Union cavalry, it surprised them, especially because the Confederate cavalry was way out and around and wasn't anywhere nearby, not feeding the information, which kind of led to Lee, like the Union and the Confederates kind of like almost stumbling into each other. But
yeah,
Harrison, gives great exposition. So does Colonel Fremantle, or people explain what's going on in the war to Colonel Fremantle more than him explaining it to anybody else. And you get some interesting, in the early part of the movie, some of Buford's letters of the situation being sent back, asking for reinforcements and whatnot. And then you at other times get like Lee's inner monologue about, the leaving, this is God's will, and Chamberlain's thought as he's working through rhetoric and logic as a college professor trying to work through how to protect, his assignment. So historically, the Buford's cavalry kind of seizes some high ground west of Gettysburg. They hold out long enough for Union infantry to show up, but they're greatly outnumbered, and the Confederates are closer to getting it all together than the Union is. The lead Union commander who takes over from Buford, he gets killed, and so it kind of degrades the Union line of chain of command. And so people, the Union force eventually gets pushed back through Gettysburg and up on the hills outside of Gettysburg that Buford also said would be great places to hold. Some of the best parts you get is Sam Elliott basically predicting what he thinks the battle's going to look like. And you get him giving the exposition of what he thinks is going to happen the days leading up to the battle and how intense he is. It's great Sam Elliott, like grizzled, intense,
Here we go. The quote is, "You know what's going to happen here in the morning?" Colonel Thomas Devon, "Sir? The whole damn Reb army's going to be here. They'll move through this town, occupy these hills on the other side, and when our people get here, Lee'll have the high ground, and they'll be the devil to pay. The high ground. Meade'll come in slowly, cautiously, new to command. They'll be on his way back from Washington. Wires hot with messages, attack, attack. So he'll set up a ring around these hills, and when Lee's army is all nicely entrenched behind fat rocks on the high ground, Meade'll finally attack. If he could coordinate the army, straight up the hillside, out in the open, in that gorgeous field of fire, we'll charge valiantly and be butchered valiantly." I know I'm not giving it the same gravitas as Sam Elliott.
No, Sam really, like, it was almost scenery chewing, that one.
It really was.
Like,
yeah.
And I know some people have said they thought maybe Sam was overacting, but maybe it's because I watched it when I was formative at 12 years old, but it just grips me every time because the intensity is right there. And I've seen interviews with a lot of these actors. One of the cool things that they did was they filmed a lot of great behind the scenes stuff. And they had a lot of like early, like what you would say were DVD extras. Like they had a making of video. They had actors, like video journals and whatnot. And they eventually compiled it into this huge gift set, which I owned. I
know. I just assumed you did.
It came with the uncut version, which had an extra 20-ish minutes of the movie on 2 cassettes, video cassettes, the making of movie, or like an hour-long making of special, a map of the battlefield, a copy of a CD of the soundtrack, which was phenomenal. Randy Edelman.
Mm-hmm.
It was absolutely phenomenal.
I've brought that up on soundtracks before.
Right. Glossies of the major players, a beautiful book with written by James McPherson, one of the leading Civil War historians at the time, along with pictures by Mort Kunstler, drawings, and paintings, which, again, one of the leading Civil War artists of the time. And by time, I mean the 1990s. And then the piece de resistance was a bullet dug from the Gettysburg battlefield.
Nice. Yeah.
I have a bullet as well. It was
nice.
Awesome. They were advertising when they debuted this thing on TV the following summer.
Oh, of course, yeah. And you're like, that's mine. There's just no question. I gotta have it. Got a question
DG
for
Cabman's
you.
Folks
Things
did get it. So.
Yeah, they never failed you in that regard. With with your dreams like that, they can't get you everything, but they got you the stuff that mattered. Now, Sam Elliott, I know he took this uniform and he wore it down and faded it on purpose on his own. Why would he do that?
Because he felt like some of the uniforms, they all just looked too uniformed, too crisp, and
he wanted
so
it to look more worn.
And John Buford had served in the U.S. Army and the cavalry out west. He was a very experienced cavalry officer who actually got kind of sidelined early in the war until somebody why is one of our most knowledgeable cavalry officers stuck at a desk in Washington? And they put him back in the field, which is probably why he didn't advance as far as he should have. But Buford was kind of as Sam Elliott portrayed him. He was humble. He was he was a Kentuckian too, by the way. And half of his family fought for the South. So he was a guy who, had a lot of, skin in the game, so to speak. But he spent a lot of time serving in the West against the Indians and along the Mexican border and whatnot. And I'm sorry, that's terms at the time, obviously Native Americans, but in the Indian Wars.
You didn't bring it up. No one would have noticed anything, dude. Sure. That's your problem.
But that's what so this guy is an old school cavalryman, right? So he was a no frills guy. If you looked at his pictures, he wasn't wearing the big fancy uniforms. He was a soldier, which they kind of worked to portray, and that's what he was. He was a professional soldier who had a keen understanding of ground and tactics, and put up one hell of a defense against far superior odds.
Oh yeah,
and chose excellent ground. He's one of the main reasons the Union won the battle, because of the position he took. Enabled the rest of the Union Army, when it showed up, to get into the superior high ground,
right,
south of town. So,
and
I know I have walked the battlefield where he stood and seen it.
Ironically, so have I. Maybe not exactly where he stood, but it's a hell of a lot hillier than you'd think. That's for sure. Two things that we really need to bring up. Okay, we need to bring up the battle at Little Round Top with the 20th Maine, and them having to hook around and deal with that. That's an amazing scene. That's basically all of the third hour, the second hour. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
third hour.
It's the second into the third hour.
Yeah,
it's basically there's like three real chunks of the movie. There's the first, obviously, there's the cavalry fight in the first day's battle. You have basically the fight at Little Round Top, and then you have Pickett's charge, interspersed with all the camp scenes and some other scenes here and there, but that's really the biggest bite of it. So the bulk of the Union Army arrives on the night of just the 1st into the 2nd, and they start forming in this kind of fishhook line with 2 hills up north, Culps and Cemetery Hill, going down Cemetery Ridge,
right here,
and stopping just around the Round Tops and Devil's Den. They hadn't quite extended all the way down there. The Confederates have pretty much, the Union is still about only 65 to 70% strength by the time the second day's battle begins. The Confederates are closer to like 80% strength. They got Pickett's division that's kind of running behind, and then most of Jeb Stuart's cavalry hadn't arrived yet. The Union, on the other hand, they're divided up into 7 corps or subunits, but only at the time of the start of the second day, only 5 are there. So one of them goes out into the peach orchard in the wheat field beforehand, and that runs right into where Longstreet's attacking. So Lee wants to fight at Gettysburg because the army's here. Longstreet's like, we really don't want to fight here. They're on the high ground. Okay, folks, keep that term in mind, the high ground. Okay. Longstreet wants to swing around south of the Union Army and get between Meade's forces in Washington. He talks about it a lot because then he can choose ground defensively because they're a smaller force, they have less supplies. It would be better for them to fight in the defense. Lee.
And this is what you described as Longstreet being a very defensive-minded general.
Right. Which is also generally been the Confederate campaign. Right. The Confederate campaign in Virginia has generally been defensive. It shortens your supply lines. You know, if you can get into good defensive positions, you're able to defend with a smaller number, which the Confederates almost always had. And so it just kind of became a big deal, right? But Lee kind of maybe smelling blood in the water, and there is reports that maybe he had either a mini stroke or heart attack in the days leading up to the battle. Also had kind of his blood up where he's like, if I knock this army out and decisively defeat him in Union territory, away from his supply base, then maybe, just maybe, Lincoln is going to say, fuck it. Go to the negotiating table. So Lee's trying to go for the knockout blow to try to end the war. The Union, a lot of the guys in the Union Army are like, if we continue to get our ass kicked, if we get our ass kicked at home, we're done.
Yeah.
Like they're worried about the morale. They're worried about everything. Now, turns out, the Union Army kind of sacked up here. They really did. And it helped having a good defensive position and also numerical superiority. They still did. The Confederates went in with about 70 to 75,000 troops. The Union Army went in somewhere between 85 and 90,000. Okay. We're talking 150,000 soldiers on this ground. It's the largest battle ever fought in the Western Hemisphere. Okay. The bloodiest day in American history, the bloodiest battle in American history up until, I think, World War II. And was absolutely as critical to both sides as the movie, the book portray it. Okay, and it's shot beautifully. The cinematography was gorgeous.
It's pretty wild, yeah.
By the way, they also filmed on a good chunk of the southern part of the battlefield. They shot in and around Gettysburg in Adams County, Pennsylvania, some areas in Pennsylvania and Maryland. They didn't shoot it in Europe. They didn't shoot it in Canada. They didn't shoot it in Colorado or someplace. This was Pennsylvania, and they were on parts of the battlefield. They had to green screen out some stuff.
Yeah.
And that's
definitely shot it on Little Round Top.
Movie, they had some scenes, but they didn't really shoot the fighting on. Obviously, they didn't shoot the fighting on. There's too many monuments.
Yeah. Although I'm pretty sure they put some strategic bushes around some of the monuments over by the Confederate line.
They did. They definitely covered some things up. And remember, this is 1992 when they were filming this movie. So it's, you know, it's not like now where you could really CGI out anything you wanted, right?
No.
This was
they had
very
to place
well
the camera
done.
so it didn't show the paved road.
Yep.
In between,
Or they
in
covered.
between Pickett's line and the Union line.
They actually when they in the first hour of the movie, and they show the Confederates on the march to the Union, to the battle. Once the battle's already started, and you're seeing Confederate units coming in like miles down the road, and they're passing like old buildings. Like those are some of those are actual historic buildings where they just took a shitload of dirt and for like a couple 100-yard stretch, covered a concrete road or an asphalt road with dirt. So it looked like that was what was going on. And they got a lot of support from the National Park Service. Okay. So there's like 4 people who they follow who kind of have their own scenes, and it's based on the chapters in the book. But the 4 ones are, you get 2 Union and 2 Confederate, although it's a little heavier on Confederate throughout, but you get Chamberlain and Buford are the point of view characters, you would call them, for the Union. And then Lee and Longstreet are the point of view characters from the South, right?
And Buford drops out in the first third. Chamberlain drops out in the last quarter, really. You don't see much of him.
Pops up.
He's there,
but
yeah, you don't see him in the movie, which it was interesting.
I mean, you see him a little, and he has like the scene at the end of the movie with his brother, right? But that's, I mean, after really day 2, the 20th Maine doesn't do much anyway because they fought.
Well, they earned it.
Let's get to it. So the 20th Maine, that's Jeff Daniels, by the way, the great Jeff Daniels, who's had such a wonderful and varied career. He really liked this role, and he really got into it because Chamberlain was like a real Renaissance man, could read and write 6 languages, Phi Beta Kappa, you know. As soon as he basically graduated college, basically went into teaching at the same college, you know, was a scholar, was a Northern gentleman, a man who, you know, had thoughts on abolition and whatnot. Not a radical, but, you know, and he was initially turned down a chance to leave to go fight in the war. So he's like, oh, well, can I go to Europe and study? Yeah, you can go to Europe and study. And he went and joined the army.
Yeah.
And he was kind of this guy who just, his family had served at various points in the war, and he felt that it was his duty to serve. And his younger brother followed him along. But, you know, this was a man with no real military experience, but he was a quick study, and he found every manual he could. He talked to officers who had experience, and he kind of built himself up.
He had a good sergeant with him right here.
One of the few fictional characters in the actual novel is this, played by Kevin Conroy, K-Less himself. There we are. We can tie it back to
Sci-Fi. There it is. Probably one of the best characters. I mean, whoo, boy, I loved this guy so much.
Kevin Conway playing
he was Irish.
Buster Kilrain. Yeah, he plays an Irish immigrant who had been in the army forever, and he kind of is like Chamberlain's Yoda / you know, he's kind of the mentor sounding board. Kind of based on a couple of different people from the 20th Maine. But he's like the only major fictional character in the entire novel. That being said, he's this fantastic counterbalance. He's always trying to make sure Chamberlain's, you know, hey, make sure you ride the horse while we're marching today. You know, he's like,
Yeah.
well, you march. He's like, I've been in the infantry since you were in books, you know,
Yeah.
this old crusty soldier trying to, you know, kind of help guide this new officer who just recently took command of this unit. And they were given,
Mhm.
which is interesting, and it is true, 100 soldiers came over from another main unit, which had just been disbanded. So they had to integrate these guys. Now, in actual history, they came in like I think a couple weeks before the battle. Here, they're sent over like 2 days before, and so they get like.
Right.
But it literally happened where they got like an additional like 100 dudes, which put them at like 350, where they were like, you know, 250.
They needed that
guys.
100. They
Yeah.
needed that amount of men in order to keep Little Round Top, and
They would have, yeah. And
they did it. You know, that last strategic maneuver where they have to put men at the end of the line and send the men back, make it a right angle, so that
conventional
we can swing down,
right.
swing down the hill.
Conventional tactics at the time is double ranks, usually one rank down on a knee and the next rank above, and so that you always have like one rank ready to fire, right? So that was like standard tactics at the time, because they were placed, them and their whole brigade, the other 3 regiments. There was like literally like maybe 1,200 people were thrown up on this hill last minute after the Union troops that had gone out to the Devil's Den and beyond. Which the Devil's Den was like this old area, which it was called kind of Devil's Den because it was this collection of rocks, which just was, people had a lot of superstition about, and you know, possible rumors that there had been blood sacrifices and shit there. But and then you can see, this is looking at Little Round Top, and the collection of rocks down there is the Devil's Den. And when you're down there, there is a vibe. It's
quiet, and it's quiet. There's not a lot of sounds of life. It's kind of stagnant.
Yep. And it was like that even before the battle, is what people said. It's one of the reasons why it's called the Devil's Den. So
pay attention to those names. They mean something.
Right. So what you're looking at is a view,
photo, by the way,
from the Union position overlooking the southern part of the battlefield. Now the Confederates, something like 5,000 Confederates were marching right at them after coming almost 20 miles that day to get to the battle. And Longstreet did drag his feet. Like, you see Tom Berenger really paint this, because he really doesn't want to do this and charge into these hills that the Union Army is on. He still wants to like swing around to the right. His subordinates are agreeing with him. Hey, why don't we swing around to the right? And he basically was told to shut up and colored by Lee at one point. Right. So he's like, okay. And, you know, this attack doesn't get started until like 4 p.m. The Confederates who made the assault on Little Round Top kind of passed by the Devil's Den, which had been seized by their sister units, and charged in. And there was 2 Alabama and 2 Texas regiments that charged up, and they actually outnumbered the Union forces on the hill, like almost 2-1. And they came in, they had marched 20 miles. They didn't have time to get their water, and they charged up this hill, and literally Chamberlain's guys were just put in place at the very end of the line. There were no more Union troops to their right, to their left. They were the end of the line, and they had to hold it. And the Confederates show up within 10 minutes of them getting into position. In fact, Chamberlain had tried to take one company, like 35 dudes, and put them off to the side. You don't see this in the movie, except if you see a bunch of times where a bunch of dudes in green uniforms run by real quick.
Yeah.
And those were that's to represent the sharpshooters in the company that he sent over off to the left to try to protect him. They got separated when the Confederates attacked. He thought he lost an entire company, so he thought he was down like 40 more dudes right at the beginning of the battle. And the Confederates kept trying to flank around his left, so he went from having a double rank, pushing back fire, to lengthening it out to single file, and then bending back on a hinge, so it was on a point at an angle. And it wasn't the original point wasn't to do the hinge swing at first. It was just to protect his own flank, to keep the Confederates from going around him. They six times the Confederates charged up that hill. 6 times the main guys outnumbered. There were 3 other units on the hill with them, but they were all facing their own fight.
Right.
But they were at the very
each
end.
time there were less and less ammunition.
Right. As happens, 6 times the main guys are able to throw them back, hand-to-hand combat, gunfire, you name it. And after about the 6th charge, they're realizing like about a half the dudes are down, killed or wounded. Most of their dudes are out of ammunition because they started this fight with 60 rounds apiece. And you can fire 3 rounds a minute if you're good with a Civil War musket. Okay. During this hour, these guys went through 60 rounds. So, they're literally at their speed, top speed firing. Like these weapons were getting hot. That's how, like some of the weapons got fouled, like stuff jammed. They got so hot that they overheated and would like warp. That's how much fire was going down range at this time. Okay. They're taking weapons and ammunition from the wounded. They're scavenging from Confederate bodies just to have something to shoot with. And they realize on the 7th charge, they're not going to be able to withstand it because they have almost no ammunition. So Chamberlain does it's not really a textbook move. He says, all right, we're going to fix bayonets because we can't retreat. If we retreat, they're going to wipe out our sister units. And then the Confederates are going to have the hill, and then they're going to put cannons on the hill and start shooting down the rest of the Union line. If you look at the bottom where the last red units are on the round tops, if they put cannon there and face it all the way up, you can get
all this is gone.
60 to 70% of that Union army is going to take cannon fire. At least that's what the conventional thought was at the time. So Chamberlain and Jeff Daniels is great because you're listening to his inner monologue at times going through with the mental math and the gymnastics of can I fall back to the last round, to the last, man, what does hold to the last mean? And he, and it's funny, there's this little scene where this guy comes up and he goes, so what's going on from up top? Well, so here's what happened. They brought up an artillery battery, but the commander's dead. And they brought up another brigade, and that guy's dead. Oh, and our brigade commander, your boss, sir, he's been hit.
Yeah.
So they lost like 4 colonels on that hill, the Union Army, in that fight. Like 2 brigade commanders, one regimental commander, an artillery captain. They lost almost every high-ranking leader that went up that hill. At one point, so Chamberlain looks at his guys. He's like, well, we can't stay here. So we're going to attack them. And everybody's like, what? Attack? Yeah, we're going to charge down the hill.
This is a TikTok moment, by the way.
Yeah.
I literally came across it on TikTok when the 20th Maine fixes bayonets.
Right.
It's awesome.
And Jeff Daniels
so
gives
awesome.
you his. He must have watched Wrath of Khan the night before, man. Because when he yells bayonets, it's like Shatner yelling Khan.
Bayonet!
And he draws his sword. And he tells the guy, when he tells one of the guys on the his second in command, all those guys on the right, or excuse me, on the left who had pulled back, I want you to have them charge forward. And once they get even with the rest of the line, we're going to charge forward, and we're going to kind of hinge on the Pennsylvania unit next to them and then swing like a door down the hill is basically what they did. By the way, this is my saber that I was given when I left my first Cav unit. So,
yeah.
So
basically, if you're watching, everyone, look at my mouse cursor. They go like this and then swing down that way. And this whole line right here pushes the Rebs back
Yep.
I know. I mixed both up.
The 20th Maine went into the battle with less than 400 people. By the end of the battle, they were somewhere around 200 people were left standing. They
Jesus.
captured 400 Confederates in that
That's
charge down the
insane.
hill.
That's
And they did.
insane.
Like, the Confederates were at their end too, because most of them had marched 10, 15 miles, had stopped to take a rest, and sent a bunch of dudes to a nearby stream to fill up canteens, and then they got the orders to move out. So that their water detachment never came back. So they didn't even have canteens on them, most of them.
Ugh.
So that scene where they bring up this Confederate officer to Chamberlain, and they go, "Can I have some water?" And that happened. And the scene where Chamberlain wrote that in his own story, where a guy tried to shoot him in the face, his gun didn't. It's hard to say. It said he fired. In the movie, they have it. The gun like either was empty, and so Chamberlain just stuck his sword at him, and he's like, "Okie dokie."
Yeah.
So
he would have been justified, I think. But I mean, it went through every audience member's mind, I'm sure. Like, he would have been justified to run him through. But
the quote from Chamberlain was, a Confederate officer fired his pistol at my head, and then with one hand and handed me his sword with the other, I think was what was in his writing. Chamberlain became one of the most celebrated authors after the war, of people who wrote their experiences. His book, The Passing of the Army, which is written about the last 2 months of the war leading into the Appomattox campaign, is considered one of the best firsthand accounts written by a Civil War veteran. So obviously you would hope a college professor would have had some strong writing skills. But it's fascinating because this battle just goes, and it kind of like
as
you
is
got
this pod.
two guys who just kind of hit. They're at the end, and basically one side just had, I think, gravity working for them.
Yeah, no, I think that was, I mean, the high ground definitely means
And surprise.
Yeah,
It was surprise.
exactly.
The Reds it broke them. They were like,
Yeah.
we can keep pushing, and we're used to fighting hand, but like these guys screaming, running down the hill at us, they were like, fuck it, I'm done.
That means
And
that
that
there's more of them.
Right. But it just broke their morale. They just ran out of steam, and both sides put up a hell of a fight. And that's like the climax of day 2, at least as far as the movie goes, right? That's like Chamberlain's shining moment. You know, he pulls this rabbit out of the hat. That is a legit historical incident that people have studied for 150 plus years, because it was not conventional military strategy.
No, but then again, the most glorious moments never really tend to be, right?
A lot of them tend not to be. Now,
Yeah.
Lee's kind of having, he's in his head that night, right? Longstreet's still saying, I think we can go around to the right. And Lee's like, I said fucking no.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Well, we got enough artillery for one more fight. So he's like, okay, I want to go right in the middle. We've attacked them at both flanks. And they did. What you don't see in the movie is that at the same time they were attacking the left side, they were attacking the Union right with also uncoordinated attacks. They didn't go off at the same time. So the Union actually...
On Cemetery Hill, right?
Yep. The Union actually was moving units in between their interior lines. And then that night, 15,000 more Union soldiers showed up and beefed up the line. Okay, the last Union troops arrived, and they really beefed it up. And the next day is Pickett's charge. Lee thinks that if he sends 3 divisions right at the center of the Union line, because he's been fighting them on their flanks for 2 days,
because the center can't
weak
hold.
in the middle, right? And he is convinced of the invincibility of the Army of Northern Virginia, his troops who've been kicking Union armies all over Virginia and Maryland. Okay.
Got a question.
At this point, kind of was looking like they may win this battle. They clearly won the first day. Day 2 was close. So Lee's like, if I hit him once more.
Yeah. Draw. I was going to say more of a draw the second day.
Second day
it was an amazing battle by Chamberlain.
20th Maine.
Yeah.
But again, that was just one regiment of probably hundreds that fought that day for the Union.
Yeah.
And beautiful.
Exactly.
There's a great scene which you see just before Chamberlain's fight in the movie. It's Hancock, superb, Winfield Scott Hancock, who you see talking to Buford at the end of day 1, who's kind of right now like the second in command of the Union Army on the field. And he has got his best friend is a Confederate general under George Pickett on the other side. And they both talk to their friends or other people about how much they miss their buddy on the other side. It's kind of a running thing in the book and in the movie, but it was real life. They were very close friends. But General Hancock is riding with his aides along the line, and he comes upon the Irish Brigade. It's a beautiful scene. I love the scene. This is actually a real scene that happened. They come upon Father William Corby, the brigade chaplain, Catholic priest for the Irish Brigade. They were all units from New York, Pennsylvania, and Massachusetts that were all made up of Irish descent, people of Irish descent or Irish immigrants. They had green battle flags. At various times, they would wear little green leaves in their hats, and they would call out battle cries in Gaelic. And they were led by a former Irish revolutionary for most of their existence, Thomas Marr, one of the an Irish revolutionary who'd been exiled to Australia, escaped and came and was a hero in the U.S. So this is a beautiful scene, and there is a statue of Father Corby near where this is, where he gave absolution in a mass to the Irish Brigade before they went into battle. And they charged into battle about half a mile up from where Chamberlain was fighting to plug a different part of the line where the Confederates were trying to get through on the southern part of Cemetery Ridge, and slammed into other, some of Longstreet's other units
here.
A little farther down.
Right around here.
Yeah.
Yep. Southern part of Cemetery Ridge. This is Cemetery Ridge. Yeah. That's south, everybody.
But that's where the Irish Brigade was. And I love that that's in the movie. I don't remember if it was in the book. It might have been, because Hancock does have a couple of spots. It's been a while since I've read the book, but that was a historical note. And the Irish Brigade monument at Gettysburg, you had to have seen it.
Probably.
The Celtic Cross and the Wolfhound.
Yes, I saw it.
It's the best. Yeah. It is the best monument on the battlefield. It is the most beautiful one there, and it is just.
We didn't get out for it, unfortunately. There were so many different monuments to get out for.
It is. That one is, I think, the prettiest.
Yeah, and we had to be judicious in. The tour guide was judicious in where we got out. So,
as you should be, in a limited time, much like this podcast.
Yeah,
and much like this podcast and the movie and the battle, it's going on.
It all must come to an end. I got a question for you, because, and you kind of alluded to it. My impression come the last day of the battle with Lee's generals coming to him going, listen, we can't charge the center. We just can't. It's a terrible idea. It's over a mile of our troops going to be exposed, being open to their artillery. And it's going to be an attrition, a test of attrition all the way up until we actually, hit their line. And Lee was just adamant, we're going to power right through. And my impression was when I was watching this, because this is the first time I'd ever seen the movie, I was like, Lee was a genius when it came to fighting the Union. I mean, especially with the lack of resources that he had, the lack of manpower. I mean, all of that, right? Resources covers all of that. But
Sure.
I mean, lack of manpower, lack of ammunition, lack of general resources, lack of logistics, all of that. He was still able to basically run roughshod over the Union Army, pretty much
Mostly
till this point.
mostly by being in defense and then launching strategic counterattacks at certain spots.
Sure. And this was supposedly that strategic counterattack, but the mark of a genius and a good general is one who listens to his men. And I say this in the male sense because this is in the sense of the Civil War, everybody. Okay. So
Sure. It's fine.
He didn't do that. And every point that was being brought up to prevent that last charge with Pickett was a very valid point. And even a civilian would be like, maybe this is a bad idea. Yeah, maybe we should move around. And I know why he didn't want to move around, because that means more movement in this heat, more time thinning the line. I get it. I understand that.
Also, he also was very much, I think by that point, he had also bought into the hype a little bit, that the Army of Northern Virginia was the finest group of soldiers in existence. And that,
yeah,
he makes points in the movie where he says, I have never left the enemy in control of the field, or something like that. And there is some historical documentation that thinks that not only did Lee kind of buy into it, but they also think that his health kind of dipped at that time. There's some thoughts that he had maybe had a small stroke.
Yeah.
There's some historical evidence about it.
At this point.
You also have to understand too that they really did embarrass the Union Army quite a lot in the previous 2 years, and 6 months in particular, between Fredericksburg and Chancellorsville. And he mentions at times to Longstreet and some of these others, like, he's getting support through rail and manpower, and Richmond doesn't have anything left to send us. So we have to fight with what we've got. We've got to. And Lee really was, I think, trying to go for the knockout blow. And he knew, and probably so, if he was to take out the Army of the Potomac and really just break it one more time in Pennsylvania.
Road to Washington was uncontested.
Where, that's the prevailing opinion. He's not wrong in some of these assumptions, at least not based on the information he would have at the time. Okay. And quite possibly, yes, he would have forced the Union to sue for peace if he really, broke the Army of the Potomac. And other people have said his blood got up. They really, after the morning, in the afternoon of the first day, they kicked the Union Army's ass out of Gettysburg. Now, there was a couple of different moments where his subordinates did not communicate. The key to clarity is brevity. And he said to a guy who was relatively new to command, take those hills if practicable. Okay, so this guy's like, well, maybe I don't think it's prudent. If Lee had just said, I want you to take those hills, the guy probably would have gone and tried to take those hills. Really? Yeah. Okay, but he left interpretation open. And this guy who had already lost a leg, you've seen the scene where he's on the end of the first night, and all these dudes file in, and he's asking them, did anybody misunderstand my orders? What happened? And you have the other guy, W. Morgan Shepherd, by the way, coming in and yelling about how his boss is a huge dumbass. He could have been played by Kurtwood Smith as Red Foreman, basically.
Yeah.
That bloody damn hill is empty as his bloody damn head. Another guy who had some great Star Trek connections there, W. Morgan Shepherd.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, there's signs of that. And Longstreet's attack should have gotten off sooner on day 2. And the guys attacking over on the right, over on Cemetery and Culp's Hill, on the Union right, they were not coordinated. They were supposed to coordinate the Longstreet, and I think that was A.P. Hill, who was in command over on the other side, were supposed to go off around the same time, forcing the Union Army to have to fight on both flanks, meaning that they couldn't maybe shift guys around. But they actually did because the attacks were uncoordinated. And so they were able to take guys from certain areas and move them. And like this area behind the Union line, people were just running up and down all day long. And still no cavalry trying to sweep around and get in their rear, because Stuart's all running around. And Lee really chewed his ass. That was a great scene where he chewed Stuart's ass left and right.
Yeah.
Because Stuart got a little big for his britches. Because he'd been embarrassing the Union cavalry. But they finally had good dudes in charge of the Union Army now over here. But Lee bought his hype. And so conventional wisdom said, don't do this. He's like, he beefed up the right. He beefed up his left. He can't have been able to beef up his middle because he had to fend off these huge attacks. So he's got to be weak in the middle. So he's doing some tactical math. He's like, he's got to be weak in the middle. He won't expect us to charge in the middle. It would make, So he loads up with his only fresh unit, a bunch of guys who weren't really involved on day 2, who had fought on day 1, but not on day 2, and stacked them up with, a guy with some great sci-fi cred, Stephen Lang, playing George Pickett. He was fantastic as Pickett. By the way, one of the other guys was George Lazenby, the one-shot James Bond.
Oh, jeez.
Yep. So you got a James Bond there, and they still couldn't fucking win. Just know that. So they make this charge in the center, over a mile of open field, and it's layered attack. Like the Union Army, and while Cemetery Ridge is not a huge imposing ridge, it is a height. They did have stone walls. They did build up some protection, and it was where one of the better Union commands was at the time. And they were just marching over these open cornfields and farmland, and they're getting nailed by artillery, long-range artillery, which of course is shot and shell. But here's the thing that you got to understand.
This is from Meade's perspective.
The copse of trees, the salient. This is the spot that the Confederates were aiming at when they sent 15,000 soldiers marching across that field, from that tree line behind, all the way across those fields, over those, having to take those rails down on those fences, which did slow them up. It also held them up. And as they got closer, they got into different range.
By the way, this little white spot here, Ford F-150, the paved road right here. This is the fence that the Rebs got all stuck on, I think, because this was like a regular picket fence.
If you were to crop out the monument and that car, for the most part, that's what it looked like.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
And they did, like I said, they reclaimed chunks of the battlefield. The town had crept up, and they wiped out like a mile of stuff that crept onto the main part of the battlefield. And I think they moved shit to the other side of town. But that's the view. Actually, when I went to Gettysburg with a buddy of mine, he wanted to walk the Pickett's charge. I drove around to meet him at the center point. I stopped at this little stand, bought a toy gun, God. And I jumped out of the tree at him, and I'm like, they didn't make it then, they're not making it now. We were 22 years old. We were both 1 month shy from getting our lieutenant's bars pinned on and becoming Army officers. It was wild. But you get this emotional scene of, and it was very emotional. These Confederates had thought that this is going to be the end of the war. We can win. We have continuously won all these fights. We're better soldiers. We grew up hunting and fishing, and these guys are all a bunch of farmers or like bookkeepers. They had an opinion of Northern troops, right?
Soft hands.
Yeah, they didn't think the martial prowess was there, and they were coming at a group of very hardened professionals, maybe not so much professionals, but guys who've been around a while under maybe one of the best sub unit commanders of this Union Army in Winfield Scott Hancock.
Virginians tend to forget that the birthplace of the Revolution was New England. They always forget that.
It's also the cradle of abolition.
They always fucking forget that. Like you just gotta stop. And apparently, new fact I learned: more than half of all of Medal of Honor recipients are of Irish heritage.
From the Civil War?
Which makes sense. No, just in general. Like, I mean, of course, an ethnic group like that would, when they have a delightful term for a fight to the death in front of a pub, it's called a Donnybrook. Oh my God.
Needless to say, this is the climax of the movie. It's the climax of the battle. And it's also the point where the Civil War really kind of starts to make a turn. Okay. You see it beautifully in the movie. You see the emotion in the faces of the actors who are portraying the leaders. They're charging
march to their death.
But they also think they're marching to victory and glory, and they think they're going to break them. And they start coming in under not only artillery fire, but as they get closer, they come in under what they call canister fire, which is basically a coffee can filled with metal balls that turns a cannon into a shotgun. And that is lethal at close range. And the Union Army is stacking what they call double canister, putting two of them in a cannon and opening fire. And it's just ripping huge holes in the Confederate line. And this movie is not gory. Okay, first off,
it's not. It's a surprisingly
it could have
lack
been
of blood.
Yes. You're right. It is not a lot of blood in it. There's a lot of people who die, and they've got the squibs but they're not. It's not ridiculous, right? They do a pretty good job of showing real war of the 19th century without it being horrible and gruesome, even though it is. Like the scene in the Confederate hospital at the end of day 2, where there's the pile of limbs outside.
Yeah, I saw that.
Awful.
It's a quick glance, by the way.
It is, and it's historically accurate and disgusting and real. They did a fantastic job with it. They threw just enough in there to go, okay, this ain't just sanitized TV combat. Okay. They had plenty of, rubber tip bayonets and, bayonets that, sink in. So a lot of bayoneting in some of these fights, a lot of people getting clubbed with rifles and hand-to-hand combat, particularly once Pickett's charge gets to its zenith, where the last 500 dudes actually managed to get through the Union Wall. The problem is that you don't have any support. They've broken through. Lou Armistead leads the way, and he immediately gets shot.
Yeah, Rebs don't have support. I mean,
Union
there's
troops
a mile
are
of
pouring in.
no man's land behind them.
Right. But Union troops are now shuffling in from other spots. Reserves are coming in, and they're getting mowed down. Right.
Mm-hmm.
The he's yelling, turn the cannons around on them. But here comes like 200, like 2,000 more Union troops are coming in. So much so that as the Confederates are retreating, a Vermont unit, which is historical, not in the movie, although in one of the uncut scenes they talk about some dudes coming out and they're shooting into our flank, but it's it's one of those cut scenes that's in the uncut version. Some Union troops actually swing out from the line, go perpendicular to their own line, and start shooting into the flanks of the Confederates. And so as they're retreating, as the Confederates are finally retreating, they're actually still getting mowed down. And that's not even to count the cavalry battle that's east of town, where newly promoted General George Armstrong Custer leads a Union cavalry charge to break up the Confederate cavalry attack that's supposed to ambush the Union rear, which isn't in the book. It isn't in the movie. It was something that really happened. It was apparently a real wild and bloody affair out there.
Custer was never one to be gentle when it came to riding headstrong and into the battle.
And he did it to so much success during the Civil War, he thought he could do it in the Indian Wars, and that didn't turn out as well for him. His men also thought he walked on water during the Civil War. They hated him on the plains, but that's a completely different story. And so the battle ends. You get General Armistead, who's found by Tom Chamberlain. That's not actually the guy who found him. It was another guy who turns out they were both Masons historically. Learned that, so this guy went to him. He's like, oh, I'm a Mason. I'm a Mason. That thing, and gave him a package. Armistead eventually dies, like a day or two later, but he gives him a package, which was his personal Bible to be sent to his friend Winfield Scott Hancock's wife. Hancock was seriously wounded earlier in the movie when he was reminded by Ken Burns to get down. That was Ken Burns, who was the guy who said, please get down.
I was going to say, wait a minute. Hold on a second.
Yeah. Ken Burns.
Yeah, Ken Burns, the documentarian, everybody.
At the end of Pickett's charge, you see this Union general holding a bunch of swords. That guy's Brian Pohanka. He was another big historian at the time in the 90s. Mm-hmm. So there was a bunch of historians who had cameos. Ted Turner had a cameo as George Patton's grandfather. Really? That's the character he played. Yeah, George Patton had his father and grandfather fought in the Civil War. Just some weird history stuff, but that's the name he's listed. He's Waller Patton. So that was interesting. So Ted Turner got to have a small cameo where he gets shot. He said he wanted to die in Pickett's charge. He put up a bunch of money. They said, okay, you can die in Pickett's charge.
The man said he wanted to die in Pickett's charge. What am I going to do?
They helped him make the movie. Now, do you want to know what the best part of this movie is when you think about it? I'm going to tell you the best part.
Yeah, just tell me. I can't. I'll besmirch your
10
interpretation.
10,000 Civil War reenactors showed up and basically did this for free for like an entire month. Summer,
it shows
all over the country, and occasionally they put guys in other uniforms. They're like, "Hey, give these guys. We need more Confederates over here. We need more Union guys over here."
Yeah,
but you could not have made this movie with the scope in 1993 without them. And that's something all the actors said. Some of the actors said, oh, well, we needed this prop. We didn't have it. So a reenactor gave me this prop. Okay.
Yeah, they just have
it. if you watch the movie, you can tell a lot of the beards are fake. Okay. Some of the beards are actually downright bad. But most people in the early 90s didn't grow huge beards like that. They do now. No. You could make a hell of a couple of Civil War movies right now.
I know.
Plenty of dudes who like to grow these crazy beards, but not in the early 90s. Late 80s, early 90s. That wasn't a thing. But you'd see them on the reenactors. Some of these reenactors had real beards. The actors, not so much. But they did a pretty good job. Most of them really did their research. Sure, you had guys playing, some of these guys were like guys in their 40s and 50s playing dudes in their 20s. Like Jeb Stewart was like in his mid-20s or mid to late 20s. Like you're talking like some of these guys were young when you consider the Civil War.
Yeah, but 1860s young is still weathered and haggard. Like,
and maybe there's definitely truth to that, sure. But again, some of even the actors, some of them actually did a pretty good job of looking like as close to as possible. And there's in the city of Gettysburg, the town of Gettysburg, they've preserved bullet holes, cannonball holes.
There's a shell right here.
Yep.
In the house.
Did you see the barn where the cannonball went all the way through? Did they take you by that?
They didn't take me by
at a certain angle. If you drive through at a certain angle, you can literally see out the other side.
Oh, that's wild. Yeah. No, but this was the house that Lincoln stayed in and finished the Gettysburg Address at in November of that year, which I thought was interesting. In right there in the center of town.
Sure. And
so
the guy who, quick side note, the guy who preceded Lincoln was Edward Everett of Massachusetts, was a politician, orator, spoke for 2 hours. Lincoln got up, spoke for 2 minutes. And Everett said afterwards, Mr. President, you got to the heart of this more in 2 minutes than I got to in 2 hours. And one of the most iconic speeches in American history was just 2 minutes. They expected Lincoln to be up so much. So there's not really a picture of Lincoln giving a speech in Gettysburg because it took so long to take the picture. They just assumed that he was going to be up there for an hour. The last guy spoke for 2. He's the president.
Yeah.
And he was up and down in 2 minutes. And you get a picture of like Abe's head as he's sitting down. So I have gone to Gettysburg multiple times. Once my parents took me as a kid, where I was the kid running all over the place. This is this. My parents are like, what did I get myself into?
Oh,
I went twice on what the Army calls a staff ride, which is basically Army for field trip.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, we when I was in recruiting, we did this conference down in Pennsylvania, and then we went over to Gettysburg. There was a great picture somewhere of me, all the other captains and senior sergeants standing in front of, standing on a little round top with the battlefield behind us all.
That wasn't when you sent me, right?
No.
Okay.
That was in 2009. That was 2008, actually. This is 2018, November. My recruiting unit out of Ohio decided we were going to do a staff ride. So 20 of us drove out to Gettysburg, which is about 6 hours away, stayed over a couple of nights. We went out and we did the tour. So that's me, obviously, in the Stetson, on the rock. And my boss, who's standing there to the right of me, is also a huge Civil War buff. And he was commanding officer. I was the second in command. He's like, XO, we're going to go ahead. You and I will just bounce back and forth. And since, the battle started with the cavalry, I want you to lead off. I started off.
He never got a word in.
No. When I would look to turn it over to him, he said, keep going.
Yeah.
I literally, and I was a huge Civil War buff as a kid.
By the way,
you know that how much of a Civil War nerd I was. Almost, Civil War, Star Trek, Star Wars. Those were my jams. At 12 years old. Okay,
yeah.
It's one of the reasons why I went into the Army. It was fascinated me. I read The Killer Angels like 3 times by the time I was 15, I think. I just loved it. Right, it just fascinated me. So I had a few books in the van ride to Gettysburg. I was going back and looking at notes and refreshing my memory on certain parts of the battlefield, expecting to, swap off with my boss. He's just kept saying, just keep going. And I kept going. And we went to most of the major segments of the battlefield. And we would get out and he'd say, keep going. So I would talk about the positions, which units were roughly there, what was going through the mindset, what we're looking at, the directions, what's going on in the fight. We did stop. He took over not long after this because he actually had an ancestor who fought in the wheat field. And so he took over for about 20 minutes in that area, walked through there. Then we go up onto, just keep clicking through the pictures, man.
Sorry. On it.
You're good. That's another one.
We'll
This
get back
is
to
Little
that one.
Round Top. Okay. So this is Little
There's the
Round
tower
Top.
right here.
That's,
I've got
I
a nice
think, the
view of
20th
my
Main
kids.
Monument back there, right?
Yeah, at the top here.
Right. So we're on Little Round Top. I've got my back to the battlefield and I'm putting my hands and whatnot. And I'm talking, I got no notes, right? I'm just going off of pure memory. It was up here on Little Round Top where I realized our group got bigger.
Yeah.
And people started following because I had the Stetson. I have this group of people following me. They think I'm like a ranger at the park. And so
Yep.
other people visiting are just stopping by and listening to the know-it-all.
Yeah.
And I'm telling the story and I'm directing it, and that kind of looks like I know what I'm doing. I've got my bomber jacket on my Cavs Stetson. I kind of look like maybe I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Not getting paid for it. I was
Hell
getting
yeah.
paid. It was on the Army dime, but I was doing this from memory. Did I get some things off? Maybe here and there, but like people were like, dude, how do you know all this? Like that's my brain. But
Yeah.
I'm just pointing it out. And it as it went on, as much like tonight, you can just my passion is just coming out. I'm throwing in some humor here and there, things that maybe dark humor that soldiers would get here and there. But mostly people were like, most of them were actually looking at me.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like, and this was down before I turned it over to my boss down in Wheatfield.
Let me go
Maybe,
back.
was I supposed to be on the rock? I don't know, but I did anyway.
I mean, there's no fence, so whatever.
And so I just kept doing it. I tried to move at a clip just because it wasn't particularly warm. You could see how everyone's dressed. But and I really loved this. This was a lot of fun for me. So we had a good time when we got to where Pickett's charge was. There was like 10 other people standing by.
This is Pickett's charge right here, right?
Nah, this is still down by the wheat field and the peach orchard.
Okay.
There was a few pictures from that just actually came out better than some of the others. And
yeah,
I had a crash that I lost a bunch, so, but that one was cool. So, I mean, it was a lot of fun to do that. Oh yeah, that is the Irish Brigade Monument right there.
Yeah,
the Celtic cross and the Irish wolfhound sleeping underneath it. I love that thing. I think it's absolutely awesome. I think it's one of the more unique. It is maybe amongst the most unique on the battlefield. But it was just really cool. Obviously, my passion not only about the Civil War, but also about the Battle of Gettysburg. I love the movie, love the books. It was really cool. So I know a lot about the Battle of Gettysburg. I've been there 4 times, and my third trip to Gettysburg was me and Mrs. Kaufman. We were moving from New York to Kansas. She'd never been there. We stopped. We stayed for a couple of days, and I took her on the horseback tour of the southern part of the battlefield. So she and I got a chance to see part of the battlefield at Gettysburg the same way Sam Elliott did from horseback. And that was cool. And the tour guide gave us, we were wearing like old style, like headphones, and he had a boom mic and he's just speaking. So you can't talk to him, but I'm on my mighty war horse, Bob. That was the horse's name, but that was cool. So I don't know. As far as the movie goes, it's fairly accurate to the time period. The uniforms, they based it off of a lot of the reenactors and a lot of pictures, whatnot. The weapons were pretty accurate. I mean, again, most of the equipment the reenactors had. They brought cannon. They brought rifles, pistols, bayonets, shovels, you name it. They all came with their own shit. So it was really authentic. People playing music, the songs of the time. The cannon bombardment for the day 3, that's such a fantastic scene. And clearly you can tell they're flying overhead.
Exquisitely well done.
Yeah.
The cannon bombardment on the Union line was just shocking. It was that well done.
Do you remember when my dad got surround sound put in, and he would
Oh
show
my
off the
gosh.
surround sound by putting on the
Yeah.
cannonade at Gettysburg? Because there's literally one sound of a cannonball that whistles and it goes around.
Yeah, it
Speaker
just
to
whistles
speaker.
through. Yeah. I forgot about that. You're right, though. He did do that. That's nuts.
That is Papa Caveman right there in his prime. So
that's funny.
And I know we're running long, folks, and apologies. I want to hear, Mac, what were your impressions of the battlefield and what were your impressions of the movie?
Like I said, I was actually very happy that I went to the battlefield first, learned about it firsthand, allowing me to get a geographic perspective of where everything was, and then see it again on a map, which they handily give you. I actually brought out the map during the movie where they were talking about and whatnot, and it was good. The movie, it's dangerous because it's such a broad scope. You run the risk of not humanizing the people that were involved because there's so many people that were involved, right? But you're right. There were 4 characters they mainly focused on. Chamberlain, Stewart, not Jeb Stewart.
Buford.
No, Buford. Thank you.
Buford.
Thank you. And then Lee and Pickett.
Longstreet.
Longstreet. Sorry. Thank you.
Pickett.
I'm terrible with
Armistead,
names. We all
Hancock's,
know this.
These folks were the next level down.
Yeah.
But
I'm terrible with names. We all know this. This is just what happens.
It's okay.
But I do love the heartfelt conversations that were had in between the battles. It really got to show. It was very effective in showing that it was a war that was about something very important with freedom, but the cost of that war being a battle between brothers, essentially. It was very effectively shown, and the dread and the worry of, is this going to be the last charge that I'm going to be alive for? At the Battle of Little Round Top. I say the Battle of Little Round Top. You know what I mean?
Sure, it's fine.
And then for Pickett's charge, when they're all getting ready, and Pickett's just like, well, we're off to die. Here we go. I can't show that to the men, though.
Pickett was in some ways very cavalier. He'd been trying to get into the fight the whole movie because his guys were the dead last in line marching up. So he's all the way back. He doesn't even get to the battlefield until the night before day 3, right? He's the only quote unquote fresh troops that the Confederates have. Everybody else has gotten into a fight at some point. And he's a guy who's kind of in love with the cause. He's in love with the glory of the charge. He's kind of the Joker. He's, flamboyant. By the way, Stephen Lang killed this role. He was phenomenal as Pickett.
Sure. Yeah, no, he was great.
I guess you could call it the flair he puts on how he describes things to people. The whole talk of how the gentleman's club analogy for why they seceded and stuff like that. And there's some interesting conversations that go around the Confederate campfire.
Oh,
there's also
and with
some
the British representative, the officer, who was it that was talking to the British officer? Was it?
Which part? There's so many.
Longstreet
when he goes, talking about we should have freed the slaves and fired on Fort Sumter.
That's what it was. Yeah, that's what it was. Like that was an interesting thing because it probably was a very real thought that was going through a lot of the heavy hitters in the Confederacy, because it wasn't just about slavery to them. At least, especially from that statement, it was something different. You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to minimize anything, but it was
No.
more than it's more than just one boiled down subject. It was
Right.
which is a very important subject. Let's not minimize that. My point is,
State,
it was
when they say it's
scope
states'
of it
rights,
is so much bigger.
let's not forget one of the state's biggest rights was to have slaves. But yes, it was
Exactly.
states' rights, and the southern states were more fond of less controlling federal government, right?
Right.
That was
And
the difference, right?
right. And I mean, if the Battle of Gettysburg had been lost by the Union, it's a very real possibility that the British would have gotten involved shortly thereafter. And I say shortly, within the year.
I don't
You
think
know?
there might have been military support per se, but it would not surprise me to see if it would have led to a lot of supplies coming in. And the British had a navy
Exactly.
that would have probably been able to punch through our blockade.
Oh, absolutely.
It's just real.
And
But the
some way,
blockade,
shape, or form.
which Colonel Fremantle kind of alludes to, is like when he's talking with Longstreet, you know, oh, you've been to Texas, haven't you? Well, yes, I did. Courtesy of your Yankee navies, that's the only point of entry. And he's kind of Fremantle's got kind of this he's got a I would say an affinity for the South, for the personality. He's very obviously pro-Southern. He wrote an account which was published later where he believes that the South would ultimately win, and then they lose like 6 months later or something like that.
Yeah.
But he really did feel that the British Empire would benefit from an alliance with the South, which, again, Longstreet was the pragmatist. He was kind of the realist. He didn't buy into the hype. Yeah, he might have dragged his feet there at Gettysburg, but he also was one of their better strategic thinkers.
Mm-hmm.
And he did not get caught up into the fervor, like when he explains, like, we'd rather lose the war than admit to the mistakes. It's like, that's why women fall in love with preachers. We like our men religious and a little bit mad. That whole speech right there, it kind of explains it, but that's not Longstreet. Longstreet is very much a pragmatist. He's kind of a realist. He didn't buy into the hype. He's like, I know we're winning, but we usually fight a defensive war, and let's not give these guys an opportunity. When normally you do not attack a numerically superior force that's entrenched.
No,
you don't usually.
One does not do that. One does definitely not do that.
So again, there's things saying that some of these guys really had bought into the hype of their own invincibility. Longstreet was not one of those, and after the war, he ended up pissing off a lot of Southerners who not only because he after Lee died, he kind of blamed Lee for the Battle of Gettysburg, and he became a Republican because he was good friends with Grant.
Yeah,
he'd been good friends with Grant before the war. Very, Longstreet. His name isn't always given the same love as a Stonewall Jackson, who was also very filled with religious fervor, which you see a lot of tied in with a lot more with the Southern soldiers, more so than you might see with some of the Union soldiers, at least as depicted. So there's interesting things that come with it. But, oh man, they really, I felt that they did a pretty decent job of trying to show a balanced point of view.
Yeah, no, they did. No one was a monster. And we watched the movie The Patriot on Friday night. Fun. The guy who played Lorca in Discovery was
Jason Isaacs.
Yeah, Jason Isaacs. Also, Harry. He was Malfoy's father in Harry Potter. He plays a brilliant bad guy, and they definitely did on purpose make him the most ruthless monster ever in that movie, because they wanted to make it. They didn't want to make the British be the monsters. They wanted to make a bad egg of the British be the monsters.
They did base him off of a real life person. They changed the name, but they did kind of base him off of a real life person who was known to be aggressive and occasionally brutal, but not to that level.
But even Cornwallis is like, damn that man. Like, so
there
it's
were
like
people like that, but
but here there is no bad guy. There is no evil person in the biblical sense, or maybe I'm not even using that term correctly, but there's antagonists, right? There's an antagonist, there's a protagonist, and wanting to keep the Union versus wanting to break up the Union. Very well done. They're human. They're all human.
You have a couple of scenes. You have that scenes where Fremantle and Longstreet are talking, is like same history, same religion, different dreams.
Yeah.
So which was, I think, part of one of the taglines in one of the Gettysburg posters was some of that.
Good tagline.
But then you also have the discussion between Tom Chamberlain and the captured Confederate by why are you fighting? I'm from wherever, Arkansas, and I'm from Maine, and they're kind of talking to each other, and it's like people not really ever knowing, they've never been to these places. They don't really know people from these places, and they're actually having a chance to talk to each other and try and understand each other a little, which was interesting. And that scene that they do, why there's like a couple of other dudes standing there, is a painting. So they actually took scenes from some historical Civil War paintings that they actually put them into the movie. If you've read enough Civil War books like me and looked at a lot of Civil War, historical paintings and portraits and whatever, it would pop out to you. It was a famous portrait. It might have been a Winslow Homer. But they did do that on purpose a few times in the movie.
Well,
that's
very clever.
It was a movie definitely made by and for Civil War buffs, but it is a valuable teaching tool. Like I said, it apparently one of its big things is it's been in a lot of history classrooms. Teachers use it. There's some great speeches, just great discussions and debates, and it's really not vilifying either side.
No.
And again, it's something you could show at least a middle school classroom.
Yeah, definitely.
At least 7th and 8th grade, because of the
6th.
less, it's not like, you're right, it's not super bloody.
Yeah.
You can still see the horrors of war without it being the opening 10 minutes of Saving Private Ryan. And again, I'm not knocking that. It's just another way to depict it.
I gotta say, those opening minutes of Saving Private Ryan gave me shell shock. I'm not gonna lie. I walked out of that theater shaken.
Because that's...
I know. It was effectively done. It was effectively done. It made its point.
Over only 5 years later, but again, the weapons were different too, as well. Just that much more brutal weapons.
Yeah.
80 years later, so to speak. But like they did what they could. They had guys. They had catapults underwards that lifted dudes up into the air. Who stunt men. When you'd see cannon, explosions behind guys. They made it feel like battle out there.
Yeah. No, they did a very good job with Gettysburg, and I'm gonna give it 4.5 stars.
Yeah. It's always an A+ for me.
Yeah.
But, it is a very.
Oh, that's right. We do letter grades. A+ movie.
It is for me. as a Civil War buff,
I'll give it
as
an
a
A+.
soldier, as a military historian, I love it. As a sci-fi fan, I find, like some of the speeches in there, you're right. There's some very Picard-like speeches in there. The speech Chamberlain gives to the guys of the Second Maine, the mutineers that he has to take with him, couple of speeches he gives to them are very powerful. And I actually did one. I used that speech in a movie to film class. I actually used Kilrain's discussion in a movie to film class on, what he believes when he and Chamberlain are sitting up and they're talking about their views on slavery and whatnot. That was a good one. But I actually took Chamberlain's speech and did it when I took an acting class in college. I take a monologue from a movie, and I chose that. And
I've been ordered to take you men with me. I'm told that if you don't come, I can shoot you. That one?
Yeah. But it's more of it. It's like, it's like, if you're coming with us, well, you're coming. Like maybe somebody else will, but I won't. But he tells them about, he tells them not only about who the 20th Maine is, his unit that they're coming and being forced to join, and why he believes they're fighting this war. And he's real with them too at the end. He's like, I believe if we lose this fight, we lose the war. So I need
so if you choose to join us, I'll be personally very grateful. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm looking at the quote right here.
It is fantastic. And Jeff Daniels sells this 100%. I do know this is a role he really likes. He really liked it.
He played it exceptionally well. In a movie with a lot of scene chewers, by the way.
Yes.
So
there was a lot of great character actors in there who can chew the scenes. I really think most of the people who were given, significant speaking roles did a pretty good job of not only understanding their character, most of whom are real life characters, but who also are real historical figures, but who also really have reverence. Now, I remember seeing interviews with several actors who went, the reenactors, people like as they're getting ready to do as they're getting ready to like do Pickett's Charge, like reenactors are like out there in tears. Like it's so emotional for them. Like it affected the actors. It started pulling them in. So
yeah.
And folks, this one, I hope you understand how much that this impacts me. And I appreciate you all bearing with us on this long ride. And it was
an appropriate one.
I tried not to make this the same length as the movie. 4 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. And my friend, I hope that you got some sort of feeling while at the site and maybe understand once you watch the movie on top of it, how critical this was to who we are as a nation and American people, but also why some people really find this to be so fascinating and riveting.
My admiration of being an American has never been stronger than it has been now. And I've never questioned anyone being interested in the intricacies of our nation's turning points. It was a privilege to be able to experience and feel the gravitas of the battlefield in person. And then to see the melodrama out of it in the movie shortly thereafter. Not a lot of people could do that from the West Coast. So I was pleased with that. I was definitely very moved. The whole trip was moving. Luckily, I got to go to this battlefield before I started getting exceptionally ill. that trip. But it was definitely definitely an enriching moment. So why don't you take us out, DT? I can't. I'm not worthy of it this week.
Well, thank you all for joining us on this marathon. I will say, on behalf of P.S. McKay, you guys keep dreaming, we'll keep working, and please join me and Colonel Chamberlain on the high ground.
Max got a pen that can warp the stars. DT's got stories from cavalry scars. One writes the worlds where the heroes fly, the other old tanks under desert sky. From sandbox forts to the final frontier, two kids with dreams and a six-pack of beer. Different roads, same old spark. Talking Trek till the streetlights spark. We read those sci-fi guys riding warp speed waves. Mac and DT cannon lighting up the airwaves. Blasters or books, we're geek to the core. Laughing through the lore on those sci-fi guys. Max spins a tale about a rogue AI. DT counters with, man, I drove that guy. From doom to doom, we argue the stakes while the coffee gets cold and the pizza box breaks. Childhood pals in a grown-up fight for the best damn death scene on a Friday night. Pixels or pages, we're never done. Two working stiffs chasing alien sun. We're in those sci-fi guys riding warp speed waves. Mac and DT cabin lighting up the airwaves. Blasters and books, we're geek to the core. Laughing through the lore on those sci-fi guys. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, yeah. No capes, no powers, just regular days. But we'll save the galaxy in our own ways. Max drafting novels in the dead of night. DT's got tank tracks, turns them into light. Together we're louder than a hyperdrive scream. Two regular dudes living the sci-fi dream. Yeah, yeah, we're with those sci-fi guys riding warp speed waves. Mac and DT cabin lighting up the airwaves. From the sandbox to the stars, we'll never say die. Tune in, geek out, those sci-fi guys. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Next week, Blade Runners or replicants? Bring the Bourbon Rider boys, gonna get real.